Happy International Women's Day. My name is Tonni Brodber, and I'm the representative for the UN Women Multi-Country Office in the Caribbean. And while I could not be in Guyana this evening to be with you in person, nor could any of our other colleagues, I did think it was important for us to share these remarks, given the importance of Guyana to UN Women's portfolio and mandate, but also the importance of the theme of social protection. Access to social protection benefits is essential for every society, as throughout each human being's lifetime, each person will find themselves in a position of vulnerability, often unexpected, and then, of course, the vulnerability that comes with age. Social protection benefits are meant to lift vulnerable populations out of poverty and prevent people from falling back at the first shock, to support well-being and facilitate taking opportunities to equitably participate in our economy and labor force, and to actualize every person's universal human rights. Social protection relates to the policies and programs that are aimed at protecting people against poverty, vulnerability, and social exclusion over the course of their lives. Beyond social assistance and income support, social protection is multifaceted, and it includes universal access to health care, paid parental leave, child benefits, disability benefits, social assistance, pensions, national insurance, as well as skills development and job access. Again, those things that address our needs when we're in situations of vulnerability, whether caused by unemployment or aging. Yet across our communities, countries, and in fact entire regions, a critical issue is often overlooked, and that is the role of social protection and social benefits in achieving gender equity. Have you considered that while we all benefit from social protection, who in our society are amongst the most impacted by poverty, and as such, primarily in need of more robust social protection and benefits, both in everyday life and when it is amplified during unprecedented social, environmental, and health shocks? The answer often is women. Gender equality relates to the equal valuing by society of the similarities and differences of women and men to enjoy the same rights, resources, opportunities, and protections. Gender equity, though similar, is distinct, and it relates to the fairness in how women and men are treated according to their respective needs. And this may include equal or different treatment, but treatment that ensures equivalency in terms of the rights, benefits, obligations, and opportunities that should be afforded to each human being. The latest data from 2020 reveals that an estimated additional 47 million women and girls will be driven into extreme poverty due to the pandemic, increasing the total number of women and girls living in extreme poverty to 435 million. Of great concern, our Caribbean region continues to experience a persistent rise in natural hazards that undermine our very existence and intrinsically heightens the need for increased social protection systems and benefits that are shock and gender responsive. Post-disasters or post a hazard, the burden of unpaid care work typically falls on women. And this is amplified in times of crises. And in turn, women need to have greater, fairer, and easier access to social protection and its subsequent benefits. Guyana, in particular, also suffers from increasing impacts of climate change. One example being the major flooding events in 2005, which impacted over 270,000 people and spurred the government to invest more heavily in developing disaster risk management capacity and systems. But of course, we don't need to go as far back as 2005, given the widespread flooding of 2021, which impacted many people in Guyana. While we acknowledge social protection must be entrenched in the fabric of our Caribbean cultures and economies, in the context of how it relates to gender equity, we must acknowledge the ongoing biases within our social protection systems and policies. We have to critically reflect and act to reduce the challenges that these biases may cause, in terms, as noted before, of actualizing the universal human rights of all and recognizing the distinct barriers that certain people, including women and girls, may face based on these barriers. And finally, how in turn this stymies our commitment to realizing the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals here in the region and, of course, in each country. How do we rectify this? We rectify this by transitioning to fair and gender-responsive social protection systems that are also shock responsive. This addresses the entrenched gender inequalities and norms that drive differences in women and men's lives as well as their well-being. And this has to recognize that throughout life changes, the vulnerabilities and risks women and girls experience vary and increase. And we say this in plain speaking language. When we look at that unpaid care work that women and girls in our region women said increased for them at 2 times the rate that men said it increased for them. And we're talking about the cooking, the child care, the care of the elderly. That's often invisible work that sometimes our social protection systems don't acknowledge. Yesterday, we officially commemorated International Women's Day 2022 under the theme of Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And we continue to call upon all CARICOM member states to put gender equality at the forefront of revamping national social protection in order to bridge the gender gaps that persist. To achieve this, UN Women encourages you to define, identify, design, and develop overarching frameworks for strategies to reduce bias and increase gender-specific responses to risks and vulnerabilities. Look at the gender mainstreaming of programming and policies and to implement effective mechanisms for monitoring, evaluation, and accountability. Turning the tide of social protection and benefits being undermined by gender inequality will require a multidimensional approach to research, policy, programming, physical infrastructure, decent pay, livelihoods, and a cultural shift in attitude to redistribute inequalities amongst women and men. When we consider this year's International Women's Day theme, Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow, with Guyana's high risk for natural hazards, in order to build forward better, the importance of developing a responsive social protection system able to cope with the increased demands placed on it and to support people wherever they may be impacted by shocks cannot be underestimated. Both for Guyana and globally, examples of fair social protection systems include pay equity or parental leave, such as establishing paternity leave in tandem with existing maternity leave policies. Looking at affordable and universal childcare and care subsidies for single mothers at or below the poverty line, already receiving public assistance benefits, as well as working parents in the form of reverse income tax claims or partial subsidies to defray private sector childcare costs. Collectively, these are just a few key components needed to positively transform our region's social protection systems to be fairer and intrinsically gender responsive. Only then can we truly move forward with more gender responsive social benefits for all. UN Women remains steadfast in our commitment to advocate for and share our technical support with the government of Guyana and civil society and across the Caribbean to mitigate both the socio-economic, mental, cultural, and institutional roadblocks that sometimes a lack of social protection presents to gender equality, especially for women. And it's not just a lack of social protection, a lack of gender responsive and shock responsive social protection. We'll continue to collaborate with colleagues such as UNICEF, WFP, and our colleagues at UNDP to really work to provide that kind of technical support to the government of Guyana in the way in which we've been doing it to governments across the Eastern Caribbean and Jamaica. The arc of any country's true sustainable development involves full and free participation of women, men, girls, and boys in every aspect of society. And the change we seek in the future begins today. As we look forward, let us join together to mitigate climate change's pervasiveness, both from the outlook of protecting our one shared beautiful Caribbean and providing more integrated social protection and benefits that support gender equality and uplift women. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.